Here we are for another Thursday live stream on Truth Proof, and welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you, Les, and welcome, Les. And we've got Jess Stewart moderating for us in place of Alison tonight. Brilliant guest to talk to for next few hours, and yeah, it's been a great week. It's warm for once as well, a little bit too warm perhaps for some, but I've enjoyed it. You've been up to?
Well, I've just, as you know, I've just been doing some of the background stuff that we do for Truth Proof. Obviously getting some videos together and things like that. So it's all busy in the back room. Are you had any new research?
I've had a great big cat report, which I probably touched on other week, but I think for people in UK, and I say it in this short that I've done, it's not exactly paranormal, but I think it fits in with criteria of what we do, because big cats shouldn't belong in UK. And, I've been to meet the witnesses, as I said I were going to do last week. Didn't think I were going to record them, but they allowed me to record audio on location, which were good. So we've put that together. And, there's lots and lots of reports coming. There's some that have been lots of little cameos of reports that aren't enough to do anything big on. But then there's some incredible ones. Absolutely incredible. There's a guy contacted me who's had a cryptid sighting in 1994. If he's listening, Steve, really appreciate that you're reaching out with that one. And I can see Steve Walsh in chat. I don't think I've seen Steve in for a bit. And there's another cryptid report that we're going to chase up for the next Wolflands. So we'll have a look at
talking about the chat. I don't know if you want to welcome any people into the stream.
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, we'll not get Dan back on, will we? So we've got Jess Stewart moderating, Ginge, Diane Farnell, Karen Behrman, Elaine, that's Mrs. Linney, Fred Flintstone, Lee, Rivington Pike, Tetrastatic, Dragonborn. It's always great to have your support. Sam Shelley, thanks for the support you always give us, Sam. Really do. Fred Flintstone, Mike the Disabled Welshman, Tino, Tony Worrell. Tony, how good were Tony last week? So we're going to have Tony back on. I think there's lots more to come from Tony with these stories of hauntings and things. We've hopefully, fingers crossed, we've got a lady called Heidi speaking this Sunday about some of her experiences. There's Steph there, TA, and I know, as I say every week, that I'm going to miss names, and I feel ever so guilty when I do. Stargazer's there. But I think we need to bring our guest on, Jonathan Chapman.
Yeah,
you're going to stop me, Les?
I'll just say one thing before we bring our guest on, Paul. Because we have reached over the 10,000 subscriber count, we are doing a giveaway. Is that right? And can you tell everybody what the prize is?
Well, obviously it'll be a Truth Proof book or a DVD. And you're going to set it up as regards the draw, aren't you, Les? And when are we doing it?
So that will be this Sunday, folks, just for your diaries. This Sunday, we're just going to do a little draw, just to really celebrate that we've gone over the 10,000 subscriber amount. So, yeah.
But it might be something that we do more often anyway, because we get some great support off you guys. And I think Les is in agreement as well. So, yeah, thank you.
On that note, then, we'll bring Dan on, and I will see you later when we get some questions through, Paul. Okay?
All right, Les.
All right. Bye.
Well, here he is. Welcome, Paul. How are you, my brother?
I'm good. It's great. It's been a few years since we've had you on. And for anybody that didn't listen to Dan Harary the last time we had him on, lots and lots of interesting things to share. Not necessarily all paranormal and unexplained, because Dan's had a varied and interesting life as a publicist in the entertainment industry, which we can touch on as well, Dan, if you like. So welcome to Truth Proof. Just before we start, you've got the books, Flirting with Fame, After They Came, Carrots, which is about the entertainment industry. We'll probably not touch on that one. And My Paranormal Life, Supernatural Stories from a Hollywood Insider.
And,
there you go,
and five. This just came out the other day. This is my brand new book.
On 5, paranormal or not, Dan? Give us a breakdown on 5.
All right, 5 just came. First of all, thank you for very much. It's great to be back on your show. 5 came out on my 68th birthday, which was June 17th, exactly a month ago. 5 I wrote last fall, and I'll tell you, it's a short story. It's a novella, and it's a dark fiction story about it's my mother goes, where did this come from? It's about a serial killer from 1870s Europe, a serial killer 1870s Europe, who was a famous actor in Hungary, and he's a brilliant, handsome, talented actor, and he has a hit play. So after he is on the stage for his hit play, at night he kills women. He's a serial killer. Okay, so then he dies. 100 years later, his spirit is reincarnated into a young kid in Boston who is a gifted, handsome singer, songwriter, guitarist named Billy Simon. And Billy Simon becomes the biggest pop music star in the world in the 70s, in the world. He's huge. But the spirit of the serial killer went into him, unbeknownst to him as a child. So once he becomes the biggest pop singer in the world, he goes out at night and he starts killing women at night.
Right, I've got you.
So it's a serial killer who gets reincarnated. That's what that story is.
Well, you've painted us a picture there, Dan, and you've not modelled it on anybody in particular. 68 years ago, have you?
No, I can tell you the backstory. So I walk 5 miles. I live in Beverly Hills. I'm not a millionaire. I don't have a mansion, but I do live in Beverly Hills. I walk 5 miles through my town here every other day. So last fall when I was walking, I just was thinking 5. I walk 5 miles, 5. I'm like, 5 is such a great word. It's a strong, powerful word. I'm like, I love that word 5. What can I do with that word 5? And then into my head came Fievel. The name Fievel would be a great name for a person whose nickname would be 5. So I'm like, okay, Fievel, who's Fievel? Then, and this is the stretch here, this part, I thought, what if Bruce Springsteen was a serial killer? I'm like, now I worked with Bruce Springsteen in the early 70s before he was famous. So what if like the world's most beloved, most popular rock star was a serial killer at night, right? What a great premise. So I'm thinking 5, his name is Fievel. He's a huge rock star and he's a serial killer. So that's how the book came about. It's not based, it's based on Bruce Springsteen if he was a serial killer. So that's where it came from.
Superb. So Dan, let's jump to what we talk about on Truth Proof. So just give us a breakdown on how you became involved within the realm of the paranormal. And I think we're going back to childhood, Dan, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely. So I have 2. Listen, I'm a Gemini. Everything about my life is 2. You know, it's almost like my whole life, Paul, has been like two train tracks that have been parallel my whole entire life. One track from the age of 10, when I started playing the drums, you see my drums behind me, has been the entertainment industry. I've been involved with rock bands and rock stars and movie stars and TV stars and celebrities and movie studios. Really, starting at 10 is when I was in my first rock band. I was 10 years old, 1966. So I've had an entertainment industry run for most of my life, and that's in my book back there. It's called Flirting with Fame. That was my first book that came out in 2022. So that track, Paul, has been almost from day one of my life. My parents, my mother was an actress and a singer. My dad played trombone in a big band. When I was a little kid, my parents were always performing on stages, you know. I used to look up and go, wow, those are my parents. You know, I'm 7, I'm 8. My parents are on stages. Now, my dad worked for the Army, and that's his job, and that's a huge another story that we'll do. But I grew up in an entertaining family. And my mother was always singing and dancing and writing plays and painting and writing poetry. My mother's incredibly creative. So that's that entertainment track. Concurrent with that, Paul, the last couple of years, I've just been, as I'm getting older and during the COVID era, I started writing down memories I've had from the age of 5 up until last year of just really weird, paranormal, supernatural, hard to explain moments in my life, things that have happened to me that are just hard to explain. Let's just say hard to explain. For example, after my dad died, he came to me in my bedroom 3 times and the first time he gave me a message. He actually spoke to me. My dead grandfather was a poltergeist in my house 20 years ago, and we can get into that's a great story.
Yeah.
I've had, from the age of 10, I've heard in my right ear every so often a male voice, disembodied voice, always the right ear. It tells me something that then happens and then comes true. Every single time it's told me something that came true. That started at 10. I'm watching the Monkees. When I'm 10 years old, I was playing classical piano. I'm watching the Monkees on TV, the very first episode of the Monkees, if people out there remember the Monkees. And a voice said to me, Danny, you need to play the drums. Well, I looked around. I thought it was my father or my brother. No one was in the room. Danny, you need to play the drums. I'm like, wow, okay. So I go to my parents. That's how I started. That's how I became a drummer, from that voice. I've had a lot of those.
So when you heard that voice, Dan,
go ahead.
You need to play the drums. How long do you think it was? How old were you before you started fully digesting that you've got something external to your thoughts that's speaking to you? Did you know right away?
No, let me tell you the most remarkable voice story. And this is when I knew I was plugged into something on the other side. I've heard the voice several times, more than I can remember. But here's the most dramatic one. In 1996, I had just turned 40. I was working as an employee for a very big Hollywood public relations company for years. I worked there for 8 years. And I had a boss who I detested. He's a horrible little man. I hated him. He was not pleasant to me at all. And it didn't pay me what I deserved or anything. He was very unpleasant. So I worked for him a long time. So I turned 40 in this June 96. And this guy says, Dan, we have a business meeting. Be sure you put on your suit and your tie. We have a new client meeting. I go, okay. I hate wearing a suit and a tie. I have always hated that my whole life. Yeah. So I get my suit and tie. I'm with this guy. We go to the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills, which is up the street from where I live, to meet two very prominent TV producers as potential new clients for this guy, my boss, right? So he's sitting there. He's telling these guys how great he is, my boss. He's a genius. He's wealthy. He's the greatest publicist in Hollywood. And I'm sitting there thinking, I just turned 40. I'm working for this guy for 8 years. I've brought this guy hundreds of thousands of dollars in business. And I, at the time, was only getting 10% of the money I was giving him. So if I brought him 150 a year, I was only getting 15 grand. You know what I mean? It was a joke. Yeah. I was only getting 10% of my money. Okay. And I swear to you, this is a true story, Paul. So we're sitting there. I'm taking notes. He's babbling. He's a genius. He's a genius. I'm miserable. And I'm thinking to myself, sorry, I'm thinking, why am I working for this guy? Like, why am I doing this? Sorry.
It's okay.
Out of nowhere, above me to the left in the ceiling, I'm at the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills. Above me in the ceiling is a huge chandelier, Paul, a huge, brilliant chandelier. The meeting was probably 6, 7 p.m., so it was nighttime. Chandelier's lit up. I'm sitting there being miserable. The chandelier spoke unto me, Paul. I swear to you, the chandelier said to me, Dan, start your own business. I went like this, Paul. I looked up and I'm like, what? I said, what? What? To the chandelier. What? Dan, start your own business. Like that loud in my ears. I turn around. I go, oh my God, God just spoke to me, or somebody spoke to me. It was like, I swear to you, it was that loud. Yeah. So I stand up, Paul. I start laughing. And my boss goes, what's going on? I go, I have to leave now. I get up in the middle of a meeting. I go home. It was the greatest moment of my professional life, literally, because I hated this guy. I have to go home. I went home. I called all my clients, Paul. I said, if I started my own business, would you go with me? They said, Dan, we would follow you to Botswana. So, Paul, I went from making 80 grand a year to $500,000 a year, like that. Overnight, because the chandelier spoke to me, and I swear on my daughter, that's a true story.
No, that's a brilliant story, Dan. But do you know? And I'm not pouring cold water on your story at all. But the voice came from the chandelier, and I like the way you say the chandelier spoke, because am I wrong? It wasn't the chandelier that spoke. Obviously, there's something from the ether has spoke and communicated, and I do believe that, honestly. But you say it, and there's humor to it when you say the chandelier spoke. It's a great story.
You know what, Paul? Here's how I equate it. When Moses was at the top of Mount Sinai, right?
Chandelier didn't speak to him.
Okay, wait, God or an ET, I believe it was an ET, but let's call it God. God spoke to Moses, right? God spoke unto Moses at the top of Mount Sinai. You know, Moses, tell Pharaoh, let my people go, right? Or Moses, here's the 10 Commandments. Okay, whatever God or alien was there. But I always say the chandelier spoke unto me, Paul, because it was like, if I have an angelic spirit guide or protector, and normally it's my right ear, and I've had the right ear probably 10 times, but this time it came through the chandelier. And I don't know if it was God, but whatever it is, Paul, it changed my life. It changed my entire life. I've had a wonderful life since that day with the chandelier. What
did the voice sound like? Was it female or male?
Male. It's always a male voice. It's always a male voice. I've heard it a number of times. Last time I saw my father ever.
That will be next question. What did he say? Yeah.
No. I was going to tell you another story about the voice.
Well, please do.
Yeah, sure. My dad lived in Florida with his second wife for 40 years. He died a bad death. He had cancer and Alzheimer's. It was awful. But my brother and I went to say goodbye to him a few weeks before he passed. It was his 86th birthday. So we saw him that weekend with his wife in Florida. We spent the weekend with him. My father didn't know who I was. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know who his wife was. But he could say, oh, these pancakes are delicious. Can you pass the syrup? Oh, it's a beautiful day. He could talk to you like a person. Dad, what did you do for a living? Oh, I have no idea. Then he goes, Dad, am I your father? Yeah, Dad, you're my father. Oh, isn't that nice? So that was how anyway.
Yeah.
My brother and I spent a final weekend with my dad, and we said goodbye to him in a parking lot after a dinner in Florida. He gets in the car. His wife drives. He waves goodbye, driving away. My brother walks to the rental car. It's got to be 20 feet to my right. I'm alone in a parking lot in Florida, Paul. It's probably 8 p.m. And I'm sitting there. I'm watching my dad drive away, and a male voice said into my right ear, Dan, you'll never see your father alive again. Just that loud, male voice right in. I looked around. I thought it was my brother. My brother's at the car. No one is in the parking lot. So, Paul, I fell to my knees sobbing. It's the hardest I ever cried. I never did see my father again. It's the hardest I ever cried in my life. So I've heard that voice quite a few times, but never from the chandelier. That was a one-off.
Do you know what I mean? Obviously, you've only just touched on this, so I've got no idea about how deep this goes, Dan. But from the way you're describing the voice, it's got good intent and nothing but your good intentions and sort of benefiting you in mind when it's suggesting things or saying things to you. Has there been any negative with this voice?
No. It always told me, it was almost like always a statement of fact, like, Danny, you need to play the drums. And I've been playing the drums from the age of 10 to this day. You'll never see your father alive again. Start your own business. Once I had a voice in New York on a bus. It told me to write a book, and that became my book, Flirting with Fame. But no, it's never steered, Paul, it's never steered me wrong. All right, let me jump around. And I'm sorry I'm jumping around, but I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm jumping out of my skin. My son is 36, Jordan. He lives in Alaska. He's been in Alaska for about 10, 15 years. He's very much into psychic things and spiritual things, etc. So a few years ago, I went to visit him, and he introduced me to his woman spiritual leader. I forgot her name. Very nice older lady who was also a psychic. And he said, Dad, you should have a session with, let's call her Karen. I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
So I had a session with Karen, the psychic, in Alaska. And we're in a little room, and she's, putting me, relaxing me. And then she's talking to me. And then, Paul, this is so cool. She goes, Dan, I see your spirit guide is standing right next to you. I go, wow, okay. She goes, he's a tall man. I go, okay. And then she goes, his name starts with the letter P. And then she goes, his name is Paul. I go, okay. And then this is the killer, Paul. She goes, he loved hot dogs. I'm like, oh my God, it's my friend Paul Dorfman. My friend Paul Dorfman. It's tall, funny guy who loved hot dogs. He's my angelic spirit guide. She goes, yes, he's very fond of you. He's very proud of you. And I'm getting chills right now, to be honest. And he has been helping you, guide you along. I'm like, wow. Because he was my best friend.
Yeah.
Decades earlier. And obviously he died. So, but Paul, but here's the thing. He died in like the 90s, right? He wasn't Danny play the drums, because that was 1966.
That's where I was going. That's what you knew. What I was going
I know.
Yeah.
So there was someone. Let's say Paul was the voice in the chandelier, and probably was, because he was a big fan of mine. He probably said, "Dan, start your own business." That was probably Paul. But when I'm 10, Danny played the drums. Who was that? My dead grandfather. I mean, my dead grandfather wasn't even dead yet. I don't know who that one was.
How does that make you feel then, Dan? And for everybody, excuse me, in chat. And remember, please, if you've got questions for Dan, because I've seen some questions already, but if you can put them in capitals, it would help Jessica and Les. How does that make you feel, Dan? Do you feel that this is spirit or something other? And what does it make you think about? Oh, God forbid you're still going to be on this earth plane for a long time yet. But what does it make you think? And for the rest of us, what's behind all of this when we leave this mortal coil sort of thing? Have you any thoughts on that?
Yes, I believe, and I'm going to go into my very first paranormal story very, very soon, because I believe that's the source of everything. But I believe what happened, Paul, when I was 5, which I'm going to tell you now, that story. I believe that something so extraordinary happened that day at 5 that I became attuned to the other side, let's say. And I only really realized it recently, last few years of my life. But looking back, I've had things happen. That's why I wrote my Paranormal Life last year. Yeah. There are dozens and dozens of things that have happened to me that I just was like, oh yeah, that was a cool story. Oh yeah, that's a funny story. Or yeah, wasn't that amazing? But it was in the back of my head. And last year and a half, when I started writing them down, I'm like, God, I have so many inexplicable stories. I have so many. So here's my story, and I think this started everything on the So I told you the entertainment track. This is my paranormal track. I'm 5 years old. I grew up right near Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is a famous beach town. It's where Bruce Springsteen got discovered. And I'm the oldest child of my parents. So my parents and I'm 5. We live in a little house near Asbury Park, New Jersey, suburban New Jersey, beautiful little, cute little area. I had 2 little girlfriends across the street, older sisters. They used to come over to my house to play with me. And I remember all this. They came to the house. They asked my mom, can Danny come out to play? Yes. So I went out to play with these 2 little girls. We used to climb fences and trees, Paul. That's what, and I think we played jump rope. That's all I remember about these little girls. One day they said, let's go climb the billboard sign for the drugstore. Now, my house was a block from a little mini mall. Around the bend, a block away from my house, around the bend, just below us, was a mini mall with a drugstore. And there was a 30-foot, had to be 30-foot tall, billboard sign in the parking lot promoting the drugstore. So these little girls go, let's go climb the sign. I go, okay. Keep in mind, I'm 5. And this is my first memory in my whole life. So we go down the street and around the bend, and we go into, so there's the billboard sign, obviously the color image for the drugstore was facing the highway, but behind it was the wooden skeleton lattice that held up the sign. It was wooden beams. So me and these two little girls go inside of there and we start climbing, Paul. And I remember this vividly. We're climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing up. The two girls were higher than me, and I'm climbing up to reach them. Along the way, and I'm going to say it had to be at least 20 or 25 feet in the air. It had to be. My hands, I remember this, both of my hands slipped off a wooden beam, and I saw them. I like I'm looking at my hands right now, and I said, "Uh-oh," and then I went onto my back, and my face is facing heaven, the sky, and I'm falling through the air. Let's say 25 feet. I'm 5 years old, throwing the two little girls above me look down. They're screaming. They're like, ah! They see what's happening. I'm falling through the air. Paul, I fell in slow motion. So that's right off the cuff. I remember because I'm like, this isn't going to be good. Okay. Now I have missing time. Okay. I'm in the air. Cut to a minute later, an hour later, 3 hours later. I don't know, but I have missing time. I wake up 2 blocks away from the sign on a couch inside a house that I'd never been to in my life, and no one is home in this house. Furnished house, nice house, just like my parents. 2 blocks from the sign, I'm on the couch. And I was laying there. I remember laying there. I opened my eyes. I sat up, clear as a bell. I remember this. I look around. I said, hello, is anyone home? No one was in the house. I'm thinking, where am I? I didn't know this house, and no one was home. All right, here's where the story turns. I stand up, turn to my right to leave this little house. There's a cryptid standing in front of the front screen door, Paul. 6 or 7 feet tall, white chocolate color. It had the legs and the torso of like either like a bull or like a donkey or something. It was not human.
Yeah.
And then from the torso up on its shoulders, it clearly had wings at one point, because you could see like how the back was, but the wings weren't there. There were bony stumps at the tops of the shoulders. I remember clearly, as though God had taken a hedge clippers and clipped off this poor bastard's wings. Right? So there's bony stumps, body of a bull, and the face and head of a bull. So I look at it. I'm standing there. It turns, Paul. It looks over its right shoulder. It goes like this. It snorted at me. This thing had the face of a bull, ugly, mean. It snorted at me, and I'm standing there. I'm 5. I'm like, that thing doesn't like me. I don't very much, whatever that is. Now, this next part, I'm going to be hypnotized soon because I don't remember. Either it dissipated and just vanished through the screen door, or it opened the screen door and walked out. But it left. And once it left, I thought to myself, well, I guess I should go back to mommy's house now. So I went outside on the sidewalk. I looked to see where I was, and I realized my mother's house was 2 blocks to the left. And I walked home. That's the whole story. Now, my daughter thinks it was a gargoyle, that creature. A gargoyle protects buildings and people within certain geographic boundaries, which if you Google what does the gargoyle do, that's what a gargoyle does. So that's when my paranormal stuff started. That's ground zero.
Yeah.
And did I die that day? And this thing brought me back? I don't know. Was I abducted by aliens? And the house I was in was it was a craft, and this was a gray? I don't know. Was this a gargoyle creature who caught me, right? If I was falling, caught me and saved my life? Whatever that day was, Paul, and I swear this is a true story. Whatever that day was, opened up my universe in my body to be aware of messages and things when they came along.
So I'm checking you had no injuries.
Paul, what if I had died? I mean,
yeah.
What if I had crossed over and this thing? I'm not even trying to be funny. I really don't know.
I'm curious. I'll be
No,
as curious as everybody in chat.
no,
So,
no. I mean, I wasn't bleeding. No, I wasn't bleeding.
no,
I didn't have go to the hospital. My
and the
mother. I told my
property.
mother recently this story. She goes, "You had a dream." It was. I go, "Mom, it wasn't a dream." Then she goes,
You
"Why
know,
didn't you tell me?" I said, "Mom, I was 5. I'm going to tell you a gargoyle saved my life when I was 5, Mom."
mm. So this property, is it still there then? The one that you found yourself in alone, and this creature thing stood in the doorway?
I was in that neighborhood with my daughter and my mother 2 years ago. And that's a fantastic story. I just remembered that one. That's
Well,
a
we'll have to
great
do that one, but just tell us if it's still there.
Okay, so the billboard sign is not there.
Okay.
And the drugstore is, I think it's a Baskin Robbins now. Okay, so the billboard sign, that home would still, yeah, it's the same neighborhood. In fact, it was new in the 50s. The neighborhood. I was born in 56, and my parents bought a brand new house. So I'm sure that house is still there. I couldn't tell you, Paul, which one it was exactly.
No. I'm just curious. Obviously you've just answered that one, because I was just going to say you've never fancied knocking on the door and carefully telling the story just to look inside. You know, when I wrote Night People, the property that a lot of the things happened in, I went down and I did knock on the door. I didn't tell them the story. I didn't go into any detail. I just said I used to live here, and do you mind if I have a picture taken outside the property? If the people had been a bit more amiable, lovely people, by the way, they owe me nothing. They don't have to converse with me. But I would have expanded and had a look around property. But you can't just do that, can you?
There's no way I would remember, Paul, which specific house that was.
No,
there's just no chance. No, but two things. Number one. 2 days ago, I was talking to my daughter about this story. She goes, "Dad, did you ever try to track down those 2 little girlfriends you had?" And I said, "I've Googled their names, but they've got to be married, and I can't." She goes, "Tell me who they were." My daughter found one of them, who we think is one of them. She's 70, and I found her on Facebook. I wrote to her yesterday. I said,
really?
Are you the same Lizzie Napolitano who I used to play with when I was 5? Now I'm hoping it's her, and I hope she writes back. Now, Paul, what if that's the key. What if she or her sister are still alive and they remembered what happened to me? Because they were the witnesses.
Not only that, Dan, as all things that you've already thought of, but what if they've got this quirky memory of something strange happening besides falling? How good would that be to put meat on the bones of your story?
It would be absolutely fantastic. It really would. And also, do you know who Yvonne Smith is? You probably know Yvonne Smith, that name. Do you know her?
No.
Yvonne Smith lives in LA. She's perhaps one of the most well-known hypnotists for people who have been abducted. Okay, she helps people recall abduction memories. She's quite famous here in the States, and she's a friend of mine, and she's going to hypnotize me because Paul, something remarkable happened. Okay, at the least, what happened is I fell to the ground. I was knocked out. I had to be. I had to have been knocked out, or at the least lost my wind. I had to.
Yeah.
And maybe I was laying there for a while. Okay. How did I get to that house 2 blocks away on the couch?
Yeah.
Now, in normal world, the 2 little girls would have carried me to my mother's house, right? If I was, out. They lived across the street from my mother's house. Why did they not carry me to their house with their mom, or my house with my mom? They were not in that. They should have been in that house, the little girls. Instead, there's this entity. Where the hell did he come from? What the hell role did he play?
Crazy, isn't it? So, but here's the gap as well, because I'm assuming these little girls, as they grew older, would have still been in contact up until what age? I don't know, Dan. But was it discussed? Dan fell. Can you remember falling?
No. I left that neighborhood when I was 6. And when you're 6, you don't go, I should stay in touch with those little girls because in 62 years, I'm going to. No.
That's, I didn't know when you'd left, did I?
Yeah, I left. I know.
Before we jump, there was another story you said you were going to tell us. You said,
Yeah. I've now told this story's in my book, and I've
No,
not told.
no. This is
No,
this
no, no.
relates.
Yeah. It's in my book. I've not told it to anyone ever, other than in my book, and only a few people, including my mother and my daughter, but only a few people have read my book so far. In 2018, my daughter and I went back east. She lives in LA. I live in LA. My mom still lives in New Jersey. My mom's going to be 90 in a few weeks. Okay. She's still, God bless her, she's still alive. So in 2018, my daughter and I went back to visit my mother into Jersey, and we spent the weekend with her, and we drove her around. And I'm showing my daughter, I used to play the drums here, and I this is my high school, and this was my house, and this is my other house, and here's where I used to hang out with my friends. So along the way, it's me and my mom in the car, my daughter's in the backseat, and we drive past this house, Paul, where I was 5. That it's Neptune, New Jersey. That house is still there. It was pink when I lived there. Now I believe it's green. But I remembered the address. I remembered it from childhood. So we drove past it just so I could point it out to my daughter. I'd say, hey, Anjali, that's where I was born. I was born at the hospital down the street. This is where I lived the first 6 years of my life, in this house. And I see a young married couple is out on the lawn. They're watering their lawn out in front of this house. And I stopped the car, Paul, and I just had like a calling, like it wasn't a voice, but it was a calling, like almost like, God, I wonder what the house looks like. I hadn't been in that house, Paul, since 1962. This is 2018, however many years that is. So I stopped the car. I see the couple. I go to my mom. I go, Mom, I'm going to ask that couple if I can go look inside for 2 minutes. Do you want to come in? Now, my parents got divorced in the 70s, and she goes, no, it's too many memories of your father. And, I was happy there. I don't want to go in. So my mother didn't want to go. I said to my daughter, you want to go? She goes, sure, I'll go. So my daughter and I go up to the couple on the front lawn. They're watering their lawn. I said, hi, you guys. My name is Dan. This is my daughter, Anjali. I said, I lived in this house from 1956 to 1962. I said, my mom's in the car. My mom and my dad, who's passed, owned this house. I said, is there any chance you'd let me look inside? They said, oh, of course. Of course. You want to look inside? Sure, of course. Okay, now, Paul, this is one of the most remarkable things that's ever happened to me in there. I walk into this house. I had not been inside since 1962. I walk into their living room. My dad was very, very good about taking home movies of me and my brothers when we were little kids. I have all the home movies. I have them all. So I've seen this living room on home movies for decades and decades of time. I remember, I know what it was. Paul, I walked into this room. My daughter's behind me. I'd not been inside since 1962. It's 2018. The room, Paul, through my eyes, looked like 1962. It wasn't what the room was in 2018. Wow. It was 1962 visually.
Yeah.
And I'm getting the chills. I haven't told this story before. I'm looking around. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in 1962. Because whatever I was seeing, it was almost like there was like a mirage of 62 superimposed what was really there in 2018. It was my parents' old TV, their cuckoo clock, their old record player, right? Their furniture. It wasn't what was really there. And it was a fantastic moment, whatever that's called. I don't know.
Did you become emotional?
Oh, here we go. You ready for emotional? Here we go. That's the living room. Okay. So I take 6, 7, 8, 10 feet through the living room into the little dining room. That dining room, I had every single birthday party from 1 to 6, and they're all on home movies. Every birthday party with my little friends in that dining room. I hadn't been there in how many decades. I walk into the dining room, Paul. As I walk into the dining room, and you probably heard of this, an incredibly powerful, cold burst of frigid cold air went down my shirt. I had a jacket and a shirt. Down my shirt jacket against my bare skin of my back. It was overwhelming. It was like someone had taken a bucket of ice water down my back. And I looked up at the ceiling, And I said, Dad, is that you? And I fell to my knees sobbing, Paul. And I said, Dad, is that you? I miss you, man. I love you, man. Wish you were here, Dad. And I'm sobbing. I'm sobbing like a baby. It's one of the hardest I ever cried. My daughter starts crying. This young couple starts crying. The guy of the couple, his mom was there. She starts crying. And I'm just sobbing and sobbing. And they go, Dan, what happened? I go, my dead father's here. It was the most somebody poured ice water down my back. Mm. The guy says, Paul, he goes, you know what, Dan? He goes, my grandfather died here last week. My grandfather sold this house to your parents in 1962. So now, Paul, I'm thinking, whatever the cold was, it was either my dead father or this guy's dead grandfather.
Yeah.
Because that guy would have met me in 1962 when I was 6, because he sold that house to my parents. Talk about emotional. I couldn't stop crying. I cried probably 10 minutes. And then I looked at the rest of the house and flashing back, it's where I learned how to go to the bathroom. It's where I learned how to brush my teeth. I mean, it's unbelievable. I hugged these people. I said, thank you so much for letting me had to have this experience. I looked it up that night. It's called spiritual chills. Have you heard that before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I had. So it was either my dad or perhaps it was this dead grandfather, but it was something was getting my attention, man.
Profound experience, Dan. How close do you think the subject of UFOs and their occupants, Dan, parallel the subject of spirits and ghostly apparitions and things? Do you think there's a bleed through? Do you think that there's something there?
That's a wonderful question. I've seen 4 UFOs. The last one was a month ago at Contact in the Desert, but I've seen 4 UFOs, and I'm going to tell you about number 3 because I think that's the appropriate one. Extraterrestrials, I'm sure you've heard this, and in fact, I'm going to be interviewing Avi Loeb in a few weeks on my podcast. I heard Avi Loeb recently come out to say he thinks extraterrestrials are interdimensional beings.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that's the case, which is very likely, well, certainly ghosts are by definition interdimensional beings. They're not physically there. My dad's visited me. My grandfather's visited me. I know ghosts exist. I've experienced it profoundly. So they're interdimensional. Why can't aliens be interdimensional? All right, let me tell you about my 3rd UFO sighting, because I think after that happened is when my paranormal stuff started to get a kick in on steroids. In 2008, do you know James Gilliland? Do you know who James Gilliland? ECETI Ranch, Washington State, the ECETI Ranch. Very famous UFO hotspot ranch. In 2008, I spent a 3-day weekend at James Gilliland's ranch, Washington State, with a girlfriend I had at the time, because he had spoken at a MUFON LA chapter meeting, James, and said, I'm having an open house. I run the ECETI Ranch. We have incredible UFO sightings all the time. He's showing an hour's worth of videos and films and still photos. And Paul, these aren't, UFOs like if you squint and stand on your head and you see a little dot of white or red, you go, oh, these are UFOs, clear as day in his films. So I go to my girlfriend. I go, please, I want to go. She goes, okay. So we spent a 3-day weekend at a bed and breakfast, whatever it's called, at James Gilliland's ranch. It was a 4th of July weekend, 2008. He has about 150 acres of nothing. There's trees at the perimeters of the nothingness. There's his little house, and then Mount Adams is in the background. Mount Adams is one mountain down from Mount Rainier, and Mount Rainier, we all know, Kenneth Arnold saw his 9 UFOs in 1947. This is a cousin mountain one down. The American Indians who used to live there called Mount Adams the Mountain of Shining Lights, which I learned when I was there. So there's a 3-day weekend. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was 4th of July weekend, 2008. During the days, James set up a large white tent, and there's probably 200 people there. And people like Nick Pope and William Henry and different people were guest speaking. And they showed films and slides and had seminars and panels. You know, the pyramids, the Nazca lines, orbs, Stonehenge, all the great stuff that we all love. So Friday, that was during the day. And then at night, they made a large bonfire on this big field. And 200 people of us, me, my girlfriend, and these others, they made a bonfire. And people are playing guitars and tambourines and singing and dancing around the bonfire. And we're all looking up at night. We're sky watching. So the Friday night, we're sky watching, and you're looking up for hours and hours and hours. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Okay, fine. The next day, Saturday, the tent, lectures, films, seminars. Saturday night, the fire, dancing, singing. Look up, hours and hours and hours in the sky. Absolutely nothing. And you know, your neck hurts after 5 hours of looking up like that. Last night, the last day was Sunday. Lectures, films, seminars, bonfire. We're out in the field. We're looking up. I'm going to say 2 hours, 2.5 hours looking up. Absolutely nothing. Now, there's 200 cars on the property here. And Sunday night was the last night of this 3-day event. I get my car keys out of my pocket, Paul. I had my car keys in my hand. I said to my girlfriend, Barbara, I said, you know, if we leave right now, we can beat the rush because all these cars are going to jam. As soon as I said that, Paul, a huge black UFO came from behind us, from the trees behind us, came over our heads, 200 people around a fire, came over our heads, blacked out the sky, and stopped, hovered. And I'm going to say 500 feet above us. I don't know distance, but it was pretty low. It just stopped and blacked out the sky. And I looked up. I said out loud, what the hell is that thing? It stopped. Then underneath this craft in the middle was a large glass crystal bulb. I'll call it a crystal bulb. And it lit up very bright, dark emerald green light. And I'm like, what the hell's that? And then, Paul, this light then came down from the ship, covered the 200 of us around the fire, and bathed us all in this beautiful emerald green light. Bathed us. You know, like in the X-Files, when people are looking up, they're covered in that bright white light. This is bright green light. And it's like the light was going like this. It was like Morse code, and it was silent. Everything was silent. It was like light, 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 light. It's like Morse code. And I'm thinking, this is the most amazing thing ever in my life. And I'm getting messages. Not, sorry, I don't know what's happening. Not in my ears or my brain. I'm getting messages that I still have in my heart. And this is 2008. In my heart, I still feel the following. Hello, we're here. We're sorry we're late. We know you've been waiting for us. We got detained. We love you. We come in peace. Don't be afraid. Everything's cool. Be kind to one another. Be good to planet Earth. We'll be here again. We'll be here another time. Have a lovely evening. We'll see you again. You know, be kind to one another, etc., like that, right? Then the light stopped. It went back up into the bulb. The bulb went dark. And then the craft very, very slowly just moved away from us. Slowly, and then bang, zoom, and it flew over Mount Adams and disappeared. Well, I was crying. I mean, I was crying. People were crying. People were hugging and kissing. Can you believe that? Oh my God, that was fantastic. Wasn't that amazing? Oh my God, was that great? That was 2008. Since then, I believe I'm even more open to the other side because more ghosts and messages and more stuff has been happening. So between when I died with the gargoyle at 5 and then the green light in 2008, whatever that is, but I do believe, I think perhaps the extraterrestrials or whoever it is on the other side, they have a thing with me that's every once in a blue moon, they tweak my life. Every once, like Hollywood Disclosure Lines would be a good example. They tweak my life into a new direction and say, here, Dan, go with peace. Just go. Here's your direction. And I go, okay. Okay.
Dan, so there's approximately 200 people there. And what was the reaction? Did you talk amongst yourselves afterwards, or were you all kind of awestruck by what you'd seen?
Well, everyone has asked me that question, and because I'm a moron, Barbara and I got in the car. We got in the car because we had to make a flight to get back to Los Angeles. So I didn't talk. I wish I had, man.
Yeah,
I didn't talk to anybody.
Do you plan on going back? You said 2008, didn't you? So,
oh, I would love to go back there.
Yeah,
it's a special place. Look, James said we have sightings all the time, and so I was there for 3 days and 3 nights, and the third night I had a profound experience that I still feel to this day in my heart. So I highly recommend anyone going to ECETI Ranch.
We just a friend of ours, Amanda, I know she sometimes comes in the chat and she goes up onto cliffs with us when we go up observing. But let's just stay with that for a moment. What shape was this thing? How big was it? Or was it hard to tell?
Another question that I wish I knew. It was so big, Paul, it blocked out the sky because the sky was crystal clear. It blocked out our view of the sky. So it was big. It was black. I could not tell you the shape. I wish I really do.
No,
if I had to guess, I would say it was like a rectangle. But it was just, it's black against the black sky. When it was over us, it was the only thing above it. We couldn't see the perimeter of it. And then when it flew away quickly. So I really don't know, but it was black and it was pretty big.
Do you think, Dan, that it was a collective mood and thought process that brought it through, or something like CE5 that I've not really got a lot of knowledge on, if I'm being truthful, but do you think that's what it was? You were all there. You've gone past the stage of I believe, because you've already had the experiences. So I think a lot of us, we go past that stage of, you get people saying, oh, I believe in UFOs. And I think to myself, well, I don't have to believe because I've seen stuff that does not fit the norm. So you've gone past that stage. And I should imagine a lot of people with you that evening were in the same frame of mind. Do you think the moods brought these things through? The atmosphere?
Yes, absolutely yes. And I can now jump to the UFO sighting I had 1 month ago, which was a CE5 event.
Number 4. This is number 4, yeah.
Number 4. So back to number 3. Paul, we were all there, 200 people. We were all at the ECETI Ranch for 3 days. It was a 3-day weekend. We had to buy tickets to learn about these phenomena and to study and learn and research. This was a group of like-minded people who, and ECETI Ranch is in the middle of nowhere. You have to really you have to drive far with a car to get to the ranch. It's not in the heart of Seattle. You have to really schlep there. So, but now I'm going to answer your question, and I'm going to tell you about my CE5. It was 1 month ago exactly. All of these people, we were looking skyward, right? Thinking here's what I was thinking was, God, it'd be so cool to see something, man. It would just be so cool. I really hope to see something. That was all I was thinking. And then we did. Okay. Now, 1 month ago, June 2nd, at Contact in the Desert in Palm Springs. I'm the publicist for Contact. I was there the whole week. This is the night before the last day of Contact in the Desert. They had a CE5 event at the Renaissance Hotel, beautiful resort in Palm Springs. And there's a big yard near the pool. They had a big yard. And again, Paul, this is funny. I'm going to say 200 people were probably there. This was a CE5 event. They had a man, I think he was from Australia. I don't remember his name, but he's like the moderator. We're all 200 people. We're all holding hands for 90 minutes, holding hands in a big oval on the grass, looking at the beautiful sky in Palm Springs. And the guy from Australia is like, okay, space brothers, we love you. I mean, we're all looking upwards, right? We're all looking up. We love you. We're sending good vibes. We would do anything to see you. We wish to communicate with you. Our hearts and minds are open. Please give us a sign. come visit us. We want to meet you. It was really pretty cool. It was pretty
Yeah.
cool. And so we're holding hands for 90 minutes standing with your neck. And again, my neck started to hurt after 90 minutes. And I'm thinking, again, this is from 9 to 10:30 p.m. I'm thinking this would really, really be cool if something happened. You know, it's like, it's not going to happen. You can't just, I'm thinking, you can't just summon aliens. You can't summon aliens by a wish. It can't happen. So I was open-minded, but I was definitely skeptical. So from 9 to 10:30, you're looking up. Okay, fine. Then the guy goes, okay, if you're tired of standing, you can lay on the grass. Fine. So we all lay on the grass, looking up at the sky. So it's now 10:30. I had a ton of things to do Monday, the next morning. I'm looking at my watch. I'm thinking, this is almost like my car key story. Look at my watch. I'm like, God, I have so much to do tomorrow. I really should go to bed now. It's at the hotel. I really should just go to bed. I have to wake up super early tomorrow morning. As soon as I thought that, Paul, above us in the sky, bang. There's a bang in the left side of the sky, bang. And then a large burst of dark gray smoke. Okay. Just bang, dark gray smoke. From the smoke, and I swear to God, this is the true story, a beautiful white V-shaped UFO shot out of this. I have to say it was a portal because we were all looking at the sky. It didn't come from way left, all the way across.
Just appeared.
There was a bang and a puff of smoke, and then this UFO, white V, beautiful white, like vanilla ice cream white, rounded tips. Unlike the V I saw with my dad in 1970, that was a metal with sharp tips. This rounded tips V, flying pretty slowly above us. It had beautiful gold color ribbon throughout. To me, it was vanilla ice cream with a caramel ribbon. It was vanilla and gold caramel, beautiful color. And it went fairly slow but steady above us. And here's the kicker. Underneath each wing, Paul, were 3 octopus pods, suction pods, 3 and 3. And they were like this. They were pulsing. And they lit up. These octopus pods were lit up and pulsing. And I saw it as clear as I'm looking at you right now. And I said to myself, that thing is alive.
You're almost saying what I want to ask you. I've just said sounds like it were living, so.
Paul, it was pulsing like it was a heartbeat. I swear, and it's hard to believe. And here's the killer, man. We all had cameras. Every person there had a camera.
I was going to say, did anybody get pictures?
Well, the whole event was videotaped, and I'm trying to ask my friend Michael Mazzola if they have that on tape. They have to because they were recording it. I think they had 3 different video cameras, but we all had our phones for hours. We're holding our phones. I had it in my hand, Paul. It happened so fast from 0 to being gone. I'm going to say 10, 12 seconds. So I'm not thinking phone, get a picture. I'm thinking that's the most beautiful UFO you could ever imagine. It looked like ice cream. It was like flying ice cream with octopus suction pods. What the hell was that? Maybe it was like a living thing, attached to a mechanical. I'm telling you, whatever it was whatever those were, that was alive because it looked like heartbeats. It was a wonderful experience. We all clapped and people are hugging and clapping and like, wow, did you see that? Wasn't that great? Then I went to the room and slept and did my stuff the next day. But it was a wonderful sighting. That was a month ago.
This is a fabulous sighting, Dan. Honestly,
I love that one.
And I want to. We'll not just yet, but we'll draw you back to the 1970s V. But I'm going to bring Les on, and we'll see if there's any questions. If that's okay, Les, is that all right?
Sure.
We got some Les.
Yeah, brilliant. And as always,
some
very good questions are coming, which I'm going to go through. The first one is from Lee Roscoe. Question: what's your perception? I'll put it on the screen as well, so you can see.
Yeah, it'd be great, so I could see it. Yeah.
What's your perception of true events and the way films show similar, but not as they really happened? Do you understand that question?
Yeah, I do, actually. That's a great question. Thank you very much for the question, Lee. I'm going to jump into the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance because that is how I'm going to answer this question. Lee, last year I became friendly with Stephen Bassett. You guys all know Stephen Bassett, I'm sure. And he's a longtime disclosure advocate in Washington. He and I become very, very good friends. Last year, Stephen and I created the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, HDA, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. I'm the creator, chairman. Stephen is the director of it. Our mission with the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is to unite two disparate groups of people: UFO researchers, experiencers, and disclosure advocates with Hollywood writers, producers, directors, performers. We have over 150 members today, and we are uniting them with the goal of ensuring the next generation of motion pictures, TV shows, and documentaries are based on real life stories from real life experiencers, unlike Independence Day or War of the Worlds or The Day the Earth Stood Still, or When the Aliens Come to Kill Us and Eat Us. Okay. Historically, Hollywood has made, and they've made, we love those movies, billions and billions of dollars. Aliens who come to kill us or eat us. Only 4 films that my friends and I have identified, only 4 have benevolent aliens who come to work with us. E.T., Close Encounters, The Arrival, and The Abyss. There's 4. There's probably 4,000 movies of aliens killing us and eating us. So our goal with Hollywood Disclosure is to have real life experiencers melding with real life Hollywood producers to nurture, write, produce, and then bring to screens the next generation of films based on true events. So Lee, to answer your question, that's what my group Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is doing now, so that it's not Independence Day and they blow up the White House, but it's more like, I have hundreds of friends who have met ETs. I have friends who have been abducted. I have friends who have very good experiences. I have friends who've had very, very bad experiences. But we need these films to show what's really going on and not have it be fiction all the time. So, yeah. Lee, my answer is check out HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org, and you'll see our mission statement is to do exactly what you're asking right there.
Just before you get to the next one, somebody said you forgot Cocoon. You forgot Cocoon.
Cocoon. Okay. All right. I'll add Cocoon in. There's 5.
One more thing, because I can see Wendy Muffet is getting a bit upset in chat that we're maybe not answering your question, Wendy. Seriously, I've got time for you. You can contact me. After the stream, if you want to email me or whatever. But, you know, we do get to them, but it's usually on our mark. So nobody's doing anything untoward as regards not answering your question. Fire away, Les.
Okay, and that was a great introduction to your disclosure program there, Dan. So brilliant. I'd like to know more about that myself, actually. You know, being a small filmmaker and
sure,
you know, and into that type of stuff.
I could I could talk. You want me to talk that now, or you want to do more questions?
Yeah,
we'll go with questions, shall we, for a bit, Les?
Okay, I've got a question.
Yeah, I love questions, and I will do that as well.
Well, you're one of your biggest fans, Paul. Karen,
love the T-shirt. Thank you, Karen.
Paul Sinclair. What's the sound of the T-shirt, Paul? For those who can't see
it's Night People. It's
Night
from
People.
my book, Night People, and we've got a few. In fact, I'll tell you sizes, and like we said, we're going to do a giveaway on Sunday. But that could be one at prizes.
I'd like one. I want one.
Okay, down. Yeah. We'll sort that out for you.
Put your name in, Dan. Put your name in the hat.
I will. Yeah. Okay, I will. Yeah, I want one.
Thanks, Karen.
Karen's got a question as well. Dan, have you had any premonitions or psychic experiences?
Yes.
Premonitions.
Okay, I'll give you 2. I'll give you 2 good ones. In the summer of 1980, I worked at Columbia Pictures movie studios in New York City in the PR department, but I was commuting from the New Jersey shore. I was living with my friends at the time. I did not have money to live in New York City, so I was commuting into Manhattan 4 hours every single day on a bus for months and months and months. And it was torture. I don't like commuting from New Jersey into Manhattan. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. So, but I'm working at Columbia Pictures, which was cool. So That summer, New York City, 1980, that summer, every day during work, I went to Central Park to sit on a large rock and eat my lunch every day, the summer of 1980. So I'm eating my lunch on the rock, and I'm thinking, I'm a young guy. I'm pretty good looking. I'm 24 years old. Pretty good looking.
If you say so yourself, Dan.
Well, no, I was. Now I don't think so now, but I was. I was pretty good looking. People used to tell me. Anyway, I'm on the rock eating lunch, summer of '80, New York City. I'm like, how come I'm not meeting any women? Like I'm not meeting any women. I'm not dating. On the weekends, I slept because the whole week, Monday through Friday, I'm on a bus, working my ass off. And then by the time I got home, I would go to bed for a few hours, wake up and go back on the bus. I had no life. Okay, so one day during that summer, you guys, and this is kind of funny, I started thinking about Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner, right? The creator of Playboy magazine, right? I'm thinking, I swear this is true. I'm thinking I should write a letter to Hugh Hefner. And dear Mr. Hefner, I'm a pretty healthy, decent looking guy in New York City. I'm 24 years old. How should I go about meeting women in New York City? Do you have any advice? I was going to write this. And every day that summer I had, write a letter to Hugh Hefner. Write a letter to Hugh Hefner. Then I'm thinking, oh, man, he probably gets a million pieces of mail. He doesn't need some schmucky loser like me writing to him. But I'm like, write Hugh Hefner. Write him a letter. So I thought about that whole summer, okay? Cut to exactly 4 years later to the month, I became Hugh Hefner's publicist in Hollywood. How about that one? How about that? I became Hugh Hefner's publicist in Hollywood to the month 4 years later. And I met him several times. I worked at his Playboy mansion. I did all kinds of publicity for the Playboy channel for years. I had just gotten married, so my timing wasn't very good, you guys. I'll tell you that. But exactly 4 years later. So talk about a premonition. I had a premonition of Hugh Hefner, of Hugh Hefner, of all things. Okay. And the other one I can do quicker. Mm-hmm. There's a very famous restaurant in Hollywood called Musso and Frank Grill. Musso and Frank Grill. It's the most famous restaurant in Los Angeles. It's the oldest restaurant in Hollywood. I've been eating there for 40 years. It's my favorite restaurant. Everyone out here loves this place. I'm on a date in the fall of 2018. I'm on a date at Musso and Frank. I walk this woman to her car after the date. I walk to my car. As I'm walking to my car in their parking lot in the back, there's a huge sign in their yard, in their back parking lot. Musso and Frank, serving Hollywood since 1919. Huge sign, since 1919. This is November 2018. I looked at the sign, you guys. I froze in place. I literally had a light bulb go. This was not a voice. This was a light bulb go off over my head. And I said to myself, in 2 months, my favorite restaurant turns 100, right? This is November 2018. So January 2019, this restaurant becomes one. How many restaurants turn 100? Okay. I'm a Hollywood publicist. This is the Hollywood restaurant, and they're turning 100. Light bulb. Dan, you need to represent Musso and Frank's for public relations. Light bulb. I stood there. I stared at the sign for like 10 minutes. I didn't even get my car. And then I looked around. This is true. I looked around to see if any other publicists were standing, because it was like the most obvious thing in the most famous restaurant is turning 100. It's a once in a lifetime. The next day I called the restaurant. I said, could I speak to the owner? No. You can't do that. We don't do that. What's the owner's name? We can't give out that information. Okay. So I Google, finally found out the name of the owner. Mark, found out his name. I wrote him, you guys, a snail mail letter by hand. Dear Mark, you don't know me. I've been a Hollywood publicist. I've been eating at your restaurant 40 years. I love it. It's my favorite restaurant in the world. I'm a very well-known Hollywood publicist. It would be my honor to work with you for your 100th anniversary. Please let me know, take care. Handwritten note. business card, snail mail letter. And this is in November 2018. Snail mail letter. He calls me a few weeks later. Dan, I got your letter. Let's meet. I go, you got my letter? He goes, we're old school here. I love that you wrote me a letter. He goes, I love it that you wrote me an old letter. Really? I meet him a few weeks later, you guys. He hires me to be the publicist for Musso and Frank Grill. I've been their publicist for 5.5 years. I've become a member of their family. They've become a member of my family. The best money client I've ever had. I've met 1 million famous people there. I've done red carpet events there. I had dinner with Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys there. Brian Wilson invited me to have dinner with him, personally invited me to have dinner with him. So light bulb idea changed my life. I've been the Hollywood publicist for Musso and Franks for almost 6 years. Everyone knows I represent Musso and Franks. It's been unbelievable. So those are two premonitions.
Yeah. Now you're probably going to disagree with me, Dan. I think it's a great story, by the way. But is that not more good business acumen? That's you just saw the latter one. You know, you saw an opportunity, like we all would. I mean, you're great at what you do, and more than a premonition. I don't know. You stamp on me for saying it. It's up to you.
No, Paul, it absolutely was a business idea. Of course it was. But I'm telling you, in the moment, Paul, when I'm standing there, I was frozen. Like, no, I mean, honestly, I was like frozen. I was staring at the sign, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. And it felt, honestly, it felt like there was a light. You know, there wasn't. It felt like there was a light bulb. And I turned around to see if anyone else was seeing what I was seeing. Yeah. So it wasn't the chandelier, Dan, start your own business. It wasn't that dramatic. It almost was, but it was this obvious universe was telling me, Dan, you are the publicist for the world famous restaurant. You got to go for it. And then it happened. So that's a combo, business acumen and the universe, Paul, the universe guiding me in a wonderful direction. It changed my life. But that was the only client I had all during COVID. They kept paying me. Without them, I'd be living in a refrigerator carton on Wilshire Boulevard. So thank God I got that restaurant as a client.
Well, great. Right, with more questions here from Karen.
Karen Beeman, Dan, coincidences, how are they playing out on your life so far? They follow us all, but some don't realize how they're showing up in their lives. Yeah.
I have the most remarkable coincidence story of anyone who ever lived. Let's see. New Year's Eve, 1978. New Year's Eve, 1978. At the time, I was in college in Boston, my senior year. I went home to New Jersey to hang with my friends for the holidays. I went with my friends to a nightclub, New Year's Eve, 78. I met a very pretty girl named Kim at this nightclub. Her name is Kim. Long blonde hair, blue eyes. She was a nurse. She had just turned 20. We fell in love. She was my first love of my whole life. I was 21. And we were together for a few months, and then things happened and it went sour. But it was it was the first time I was in love with a person, and it was very, very magical while it lasted. Okay. Exactly 4 years later, New Year's Eve, 1982. Now I'm in Los Angeles. I go to a nightclub on New Year's Eve. I meet a girl named Kim. Blonde hair, blue eyes, nurse, age 20. And I asked her to dance. We're dancing a few dances. Then she turns to leave. I said, what's your name? She goes, my name is Kim. I grabbed her arm. I said, your name is Kim? If she had said any other name, you guys, on the planet Earth, any other name, I would not have grabbed her arm. Your name is Kim? I bought her a drink. I got her number. Kim, too, became my wife. We had 2 children. We were together for many, many years. We're divorced. We're friends, all that. But Kim won, New Year's Eve, 78. Blonde hair, blue-eyed nurse named Kim, who I met New Year's Eve at a nightclub. And exactly 4 years later to the hour, the same exact thing, 3,000 miles away, happened to me again. And that second Kim I married. So talk about, is that not a coincidence? I don't know what is.
Okay. It's us with another one, Les. Wow. Thank you, Dan.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great.
It's a hard story to tell because there's a lot of detail, but it's a true story.
Wendy Muffet is asking, please ask Dan if you had any religious views before you had the voices.
Okay, Wendy, that's a wonderful question. So my grandfather was an Orthodox Jewish cantor. My parents were conservative Jews, not Orthodox Jews. They were conservative. Conservative Jews are pretty Jewish. When my parents were young and I was little, we were pretty Jewish. I went to Hebrew school 2 days a week. I went to Sunday school, and I went to services on Saturday morning. I was in temple 4 days a week from the age of 4 to the age of 14. So, Dan, we're Jewish, everything Jewish. My parents, of course, you're going to marry a Jewish girl, Dan, when you're older. Of course, you're going to, of course, Daddy, I'm going to marry a Jew. So Jewish. Then in the year, cut to 2007. And I was not religious, but I was spiritual. And I went to services every year as a Jew for Yom Kippur. Everyone knows Yom Kippur. It's the Day of Atonement. It's the most religious holiday for Jews. I went every single year from the age of 13 till the year 2007. I never missed a Yom Kippur because I did it out of respect for my parents. 2007, I go to MUFON LA meeting, my very first one, you guys. Giorgio Tsoukalos is the guest speaker. Giorgio. This is 2 years before the show Ancient Aliens came on TV, 2 years before. He was not famous. I sat there. My first MUFON is Giorgio. He does 90 minutes on Eric von Daniken's ancient astronaut theory. 90 minutes. The pyramids, Stonehenge, Nazca lines, petroglyphs, cave drawings, UFOs in the Bible, right? UFOs in Renaissance art. If you watch the Ancient Alien shows, he did a 90-minute version of it. You guys, I'm like this. I'm like, what? I'm like, tears. I'm like, this is the most amazing information I've ever heard in my life. Where has this information been? This is 2007. My entire life. This is unbelievable. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what our ancestors, this is what I believe, what our ancestors believed was God, like Moses is God, for example, could well have been, and I believe were, extraterrestrial beings. So all of this, I'm just like, I'm fascinated. After 90 minutes, I get up, I hug Giorgio. I hug the guy. I go, Giorgio, you just changed my entire view of the world. Literally, just now you changed my view of the whole world. And he goes, cool, man. That's cool. I'm glad you're one of us, I come home, you guys. I'm like, I don't think I'm Jewish anymore. Because there's another alternative answer to my universe that I never was taught. My parents, my teachers, my friends, my rabbi, they never taught me ancient alien theory. Nobody ever told me this. It changed my worldview. So if I had to say something, yes, I'm Jewish, but I don't practice. I don't go to Yom Kippur anymore. I believe in ancient astronaut theory. And if I had religious views before the voices, my first voice, I was 10. And in 10, I'm in Hebrew school studying for my bar mitzvah. So, yes, God's an old man on the throne, with what looked like Moses with the white beard and staff and his angels. And God is the ruler. And we pray to God in Hebrew because God only speaks Hebrew. So, yes, of course I did. But now I'm more in the belief that Eric von Daniken got it right. And that's the big picture. And I still hear voices every so often. So, Wendy, I hope I answered your question.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Dan. Yeah. I've got a question from John Alexander. Dan, did your dad ever tell you what it was like in spirit? My dad came to me a few months after he passed, and I asked him what it was like. He said the countryside is more colourful and the nights are darker.
John, my father came to me 4 times after he died. That's physically as a entity, he came to me 4 times. In addition to those, I don't know if I should do the one story, but in addition to that, then I started to dream about him vividly. 2 weeks after he died, vivid dreams. This is how I'll answer you. And in the dreams, my dad died at 86 and a half, and he looked like an Auschwitz survivor. Cancer. He had a very bad death. He looked awful at the end. 2 weeks after he dies, I start having very vivid dreams. My middle brother did also, of my dad. In the dreams, every dream I had with my dad, he would be about 40, healthy, strong, tan, dark black mustache. My dad never had a mustache in his life. Never. He grew one in heaven. He did, because it was my dad with a mustache. And every dream, John, I said to him, Dad, I said, you look great. And he goes to me, thank you very much. I go, Dad, what are you doing here? You're dead. In the dream, I say to my father, you guys, multiple times, Dad, what are you doing here? You're dead. To which my father has said to me many times in the dream, yeah, I know I'm dead. I know, but I really wish I wasn't. I've heard that at least 5 or 6 times. I really wish I wasn't. So, John, I'm glad your dad is colorful, man. I wish my dad was. I don't think he's too happy on there.
Yeah, from your sentiments there, Dan, it kind of implies that it's not great at the other side for everyone.
He's Paul, in the dreams. He's like sorrowful. Like, I mean, my dad and I, we were very close. I think it's like, yeah. I really wish now my dad was an engineer. I mean, he had a genius brain, but he was very factual and very linear. Yeah, I know I'm dead, Danny, but I really wish I wasn't. Very practical, pragmatic answer, right? It's not like, oh, I'm in hell and the devil's pulling my arms. I'm in fire. God, thank God, because if my dad told me that, I'd be sick to my stomach. It was like, really wish I wasn't.
I'd love to ask a question there, but I think Wes probably got a question lined up, Dan. So I apologize.
Sure. No, go ahead.
Okay, I'll ask this question from Jojo. You fall from the billboard, Dan. Did the 2 girls see you hit the ground? I know you touched on this in your follow-up there. What did they say if they did see you hit the ground?
I remember them screaming at me because they were up higher on the sign. I'm falling through the air in slow motion, which that's a crazy story. Why would I be falling in slow motion? But they were looking down at me. I can see them. They were on each side of the sign screaming. Okay, did they see me hit the ground? Well, they must have. Okay, they must have. I don't know because I have missing time. What did they say? I'm trying to track them down, Jojo, right now. As I said, my daughter's trying to help me find them. I would love to know what they said. I have no idea. I knew them for another year. I was 5 to 6 years old. We probably played together after that. Oh, did you see the gargoyle? I'm 5. I mean, like, how am I going to put that in words? So what did they say? I don't have the slides. I would do anything to find them now and ask them if they remembered. And I'm trying to. And I'm going to be hypnotized by Yvonne Smith to try to remember more as well.
Thank you.
Wow. And thanks for the question, Jojo. A new viewer to the show, Paul. Tracy Barron. Hi, all. My first time in the live chat. Watched loads of truth proof videos and found them amazing.
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, we'll put some more out, and from people in chat, give us an idea of. Obviously, I can only go with what I'm looking into, but if there's a certain slant on what you're interested in, because there's that much information sort of coming to my ears, we'll do some shorts on that. And we can't please everybody, but we'll do our best. Have we more questions, Les? Are you okay with questions here, Dan?
I love questions. I love questions.
Okay.
I actually learned from questions myself,
Yeah. And I will put this, I know we've just talked about this. I know you just talked about it, Dan, but let's have a look. Tracy Barron, question for Dan. When you spoke about climbing the billboard and awaking in the house, surely you must have seen your 2 friends after this.
We did that already. Yeah, we did that already.
We did. You're right. Right, Debbie Shaw, if Dan's ever in the northwest of the UK, he's welcome to come on a CE5 with us.
I'd love to. That would be awesome.
And do you know, I've met Deb, well, quite a few times now, and they came up onto cliff tops with us a few months ago, and it was great meeting up with them, and really serious about what they do. So, if you do come to UK, and
I would love to. Listen, my mother's mother was from England, was from London, and I've never been. I'd love to do the Beatles tour of Europe, of Liverpool. I'd love to meet you guys. I'd love to see London. It's not in my cards right at the moment, but I would love to. And if anyone out there in TV land ever is in LA, please let me know. I'll show you around.
Yeah. Fabulous. Just before we get the question, Les, just need to get this one in, because I said I'd not got much experience of CE5, but we were in a really remote part of Danes Dyke the other night, myself and Martin Abbas, who comes in chat, and guess what we were doing? CE5, because it's Martin's thing. And I had a thermal camera on the back of us, and I had a camera facing the front of us. Maybe that were all negative for what we were trying to achieve, and but we had that going, and we were in there, and that were incredible in evening doing that. I've got to admit, it were a bit special, even if after it, because I didn't perceive anything, I just came out of it feeling like my head were floating.
Very cool. Hey, Les, could you pull up the fifth faith?
That the fifth faith. I can read it if you haven't got it.
Yeah, can you pull that one up? Fifth faith.
Which one? I can't hear. Sorry.
I'll read it, Les. I will read it. I was hit by a car when I was young. Everything went in slow motion. I was thrown up in the air when I hit the ground. It says hot. Hit the ground. I was back in real time. Go on, Dan.
When my daughter, there we go. Hi, Fifth Faith. That's a great one. I love this one. When my daughter was, all right, so I was married with that Kim, who I talked about, Kim too. I was married, we were together 11 years. We made 2 children. I got divorced when my son was 4 and my daughter was 2. I had my kids every weekend during my divorce. When they were little, now they're adults. They're grown people. When my daughter was 3, my ex-wife came to my apartment in Hollywood to hand off both of my children to me for the weekend. So my kids would have been 3 and 5. She parked on the street in front of my apartment building. We got the 2 kids out of the car each kid had their own little suitcase. So my son and his little suitcase walks across the street. He's on the sidewalk waiting. My daughter I had her suitcase. She starts walking across the street. I'm talking to my ex-wife probably about alimony, right? My daughter, you guys, walks into the middle of the street, and then she just stops to turn to look at me and her mom. A van or an SUV is hurtling down the street unbelievably fast, way too fast for a residential. It's got to be doing 50. It's coming incredibly fast. My daughter is here. Here's an SUV doing 50, exactly at my daughter. So I'm talking to my ex-wife. I see my little daughter, 3 years old, and I see this SUV. I look at the SUV. I see the driver. He looked at me like, oh my God, I'm going to kill your daughter in 5 seconds. I saw his face. We saw each other. We were like this. I turned and talked. This is my slow motion. And I also fell off the sign. And so I turned, I ran to get my daughter. I scooped her up and I flew through the air with my daughter like Superman. I'm telling you, like Superman. I flew through the air with my daughter in the air to get to the sidewalk on the other side. The second the SUV passed us was like inches from the bottom of my shoes, my sneakers. So I missed it by probably 4 inches. And I saved my daughter's life in slow motion. And she was laughing, thought it was funny. I'm like, my heart's pounding. I'm like, oh my God, my daughter almost died. She would have been just smushed, just completely ruined. So I think perhaps if God is in your corner, Fifth Faith and me and anyone else, when slow motion happens, I think perhaps sometimes God gives us a break for a couple seconds and says, if you act now, you're going to be okay. Because that's what happened to me.
Great answer. Thank you.
I've got a question from Heatso64. Dan, the octopus arms, what colour were they? Were they emitting any light? And by the way, a great show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. They were dark brown, dark tan brown color, perfectly rounded, 3 on each of the V. The 3 on one piece of the V, 3 on the other piece of the V. They were lit up with yellow light. They were, like I said earlier, they were like boom, 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 like a heartbeat. They were pulsing like a heartbeat. So they were golden, tan, blackish, dark gold color, I would say. Part of it was almost transparent. Were they emitting any light? Yes, they were lit up. They were lit up. Great show. Thank you very much. So yeah, they were the coolest. Imagine an octopus glued onto the bottom of a UFO. I mean, how can you explain that one? So I don't know what that was.
Okay, a couple of questions. Just a couple of questions for you, Paul. John Alexander, Paul, will you be doing any merch? We'll go down a storm.
Yeah, I think we ought to do. I mean, when I've done the conferences in the past, always sell my books, the Wolfland DVD. I'll show that one. Don't forget, it's on Amazon Prime. But if you want a physical download, you know, a lot of people do. I've been posting them this week. Les said, I don't think we'll sell any, didn't you, Les? But people seem to want DVDs. So, yeah, and T-shirts and cups. So, yeah, I think that's something that, John, kick up the backside for Paul. Well said, mate. I think I need to get on it. Yeah.
Similar question. T-shirts with a pickup bobster would go a storm, says Dazza. Yeah.
I love that. I love that UK expression. Would go a storm. That's a UK expression.
We'll go down a storm. Yeah.
That's not American.
Do you know, Dan? We put little short films out, and where I'll walk about for 5 to 15 minutes talking about some account. And I take my little dog with me, and it's not my little dog; it's my wife's. But he loves me better than Mary, and he really does.
I believe you. I believe.
And they don't always. This is the first one that's really liked me. In the past, I've bought a dog. It's going to be my dog, and it's got on with kids or Mary better than me. But this one, it's all me. And but people seem to prefer dog to me. Let's put it that way. They enjoy seeing dog running about. So yeah, something with the bobster on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Lee Roscoe's saying Truth Proof needs a Bempson Cliff Club T-shirt.
Yeah, excellently. Good idea. Yeah, superb.
Okay, I got a question for you then, Dan. What are your thoughts? This has come from Tetrastatic. What are your thoughts on sky or weather manipulation, so-called chemtrails or whatever you want to call it? My opinion is that they're blotting out the sky so we cannot see what's going on above us.
Honestly, I don't have knowledge or an opinion on that. It's not something I've studied. I wouldn't be the person to ask that one.
Okay,
fair enough. And let's have a look. Debbie Shaw, does Dan think there is any significance in the 4 years thing? It's come up in a couple of his stories.
Right. The Hugh Hefner story and the Kim 1 and Kim 1 and Kim 2. Exactly 4 years to the with the Kims. It was to the hour.
Good observation.
You know,
yeah.
4 years, but I don't know, man. 4 years. There's a presidential election every 4 years. Okay. I'm 4 years older than my middle brother, and my middle brother is 4 years older than my little brother. And my dad, the engineer genius, he planned out so he wouldn't have 2 kids in college at the same time because my father foresaw things. So 4 years, I don't know, man. Maybe me and my brother. I don't know. It just, it's a great question. I don't know.
Okay. Question from Tom DeRose. Is time non-existent on the other side? Can you come back and forward in time, do you think, Dan?
Boy. Well, again, when I saw my dad dead, my dead father, many, many times. Now, it's been 7.5 years. I've seen him, I'm going to say, at least 50 times in dreams, Every single time, he's young and healthy and strong in the dream. So I think how he's presenting to me from heaven, I'm going to say my dad's in heaven because he belonged there. So if my dad's in heaven, he's 40 and he's fit. He has a black mustache, which he never had in his life. And he looks really healthy and strong. So I think perhaps you have the ability to figure out how you want to present to your living loved ones, right? I mean, my dad looked like an Auschwitz victim his last day. I have a picture. When my brothers and I saw a picture, we were horrified. So I think you can manipulate how you want to present on the other side. Can you go back and forward in time? I'll tell you what, you can go back in time through hypnosis, and I'm going to do it. Look up, everyone. Look up Yvonne Smith. She's a good friend of mine. She's one of the most prolific. She's not a psychic. She's one of the most prolific hypnotists for people who have a UFO abduction experiences. She's going to hypnotize me at the end of August. I can't wait. She's going to bring me back to the billboard sign story, and also the story with the green light, the UFO with the green light. I don't have missing time, you guys. I don't from the green light, but whatever happened was profound because I cried. I felt their messages in my heart. And there might be more that happened when I was in the green light that I don't remember. And then the last thing I will say is one of the theories about extraterrestrials is that they are human beings from the future coming back to visit themselves in the past. So can you go back and forward in time? According to Einstein, apparently the answer to that is yes. And if aliens are us from the future, I really would love to meet one, man. I really, really would. And I hope we get a chance to do that someday.
Okay. And I'll for this little session, I'll just have this last one on. Tom DeRose, how far south from Bempton along the coast do the lights go, Paul? A question for you, Paul, obviously.
Oh, first, I believe, Tom, that they're all the way around the United Kingdom, to be honest with you. I just think it's about getting eyes, not necessarily to the sky, but just getting people out there observing. I mean, I've highlighted Bempton and Speeton and Flamborough because I spend a lot of time there. Having said that, the reports do go back a long time. They're there in all the old Coast Guard logs and lifeboat logs, but also having people who are willing to spend time looking for all the hours. I mean, I just seen Linny in chat, and I hope we get to your question, Ian, but we might not. I don't know. But Ian comes up there, Bob Brown comes up there, Peter does, and a host of other people, like Deb Shaw, they visit the area. Most of the time, we don't see anything. Dan will know this. I mean, you were stood there at that Iseti Ranch praying or willing something to come, and you got lucky. But it doesn't always happen. And, it's not luck of the draw, but, it doesn't always happen. But I think they're all around the UK. I think it's just a matter of applying your mind and focusing and seeing what you can put out there and what comes back to you.
Exactly. I would say if you have the opportunity to do a CE5, you should try it at least once. And you need to be patient. Because when I was at ESETI, right, it took me three days and 3 nights, all days and nights, 3 days in a row, till I saw that magnificent craft. Yep. And then the CE5 at Contact in the Desert, it was 90 minutes. And that's a long 90 minutes. And I'm like, I really should go to bed. I have a big, busy day. Had I left 5 minutes sooner than when had I met 5 minutes sooner, I would have missed one of the most spectacular UFOs you could ever see in your life. So go to do a CE5 when that many people, like-minded, the key is like-minded people, open hearts and open minds. These are people, these are not people at Comic-Con with dressed up like, Mr. Captain Kirk and Sulu from Star Trek, right? These are people who want truly. I was thinking at CE5, God, I would really, if something landed right now and a being came out, it would be the thrill of my life. It would just be the thrill of my life. Now, hopefully it wouldn't be a praying mantis or draconian and come and eat me, look like an alligator and eat me. But I was thinking, if I were just see into wave to an extra, it would be like among my kids being born. It'd be the highlight of my entire life. And what I saw was magnificent. So do a CE5 when you're with like-minded people, Paul, like you said, and you're putting the vibes out there. For me, 2 times, man, 2 times. It came true both times.
Again. Okay, well, I'll be back a little bit later, guys, and I'll let you move on with the show.
Thank you. I want to just, I saw a question, so I just want to do that one because I want to talk about, briefly, I don't know how much detail we'll go into your dad's V-shaped UFO, the 1971, but I saw the question, what is the most fantastic, what is the best experience, the one that's fascinated you the most, Dan? I think that
Okay.
came from Dragonborn, but it didn't get put up, but
I saw that one. That's a great one. Let me answer with the V craft with my dad. Not that part of the story, Paul. That's the A part of the story. The B part of the story is the answer. So, as I told you last year, in March 1970, I'm about 14 years old. My dad picked me up from school. He's driving me home, suburban New Jersey, about 3:00 in the afternoon, daylight. So my dad's driving me home, daylight, New Jersey, my neighborhood, and a huge silver V like Victor, shiny metal craft was hovering 300, 400, 500 feet above my father's car, hovering silently above my father's car. I see through the windshield. I said, Dad, look, Dad, there's a UFO. Stop the car. Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. So he stopped the car. We got out. We stood in front of the car. I'm literally jumping up and down. I'm 14. Dad, look, it's Star Trek. It's Star Trek. Isn't this cool? Dad, look, what is that, Dad? What is that? Isn't that great? Shiny silver V. Each wing, I'm going to say, is the size of 2 school buses. Sharp tips, right? Each of the V, 3 tips of the V were sharp, unlike the one I saw with the octopus. They were rounded like a boomerang. It was interesting. It's different shape. So silver, shiny. No smoke, no sound, no propellers, nothing, just hovering there. Jumping up and down, thrilled. My dad looked at it, like bored to tears, had no interest, couldn't care less. My dad couldn't care less when he saw this thing. We looked for maybe 2 minutes, and then he looked down at me. He goes, come on, Danny, let's go home. Okay. Get in the car. We go home. I call on a rotary phone, 1970 rotary phone. I called my newspaper. Hi, my name is Danny. I'm 14. I just saw a UFO with my dad. The lady said, Sonny, we're getting a lot of calls right now. I can't talk to you about this. I'm really sorry. And she hung up on me. I remember that very vividly. No article ever ran in the paper. That's part A of this story. I forgot this story, Dragonborn, for 47 years. 47 years. I completely forgot that happened. Now, the B part of the story is the most fascinating thing ever. 47 years later, 2017, my father died. He died in Florida, second wife, and I was very sad when he passed. So I'm in LA. He died in Florida. I'm in LA. 3 days after my father died, I went to a deli here in LA to get a pastrami sandwich. My dad used to love pastrami sandwiches. And I went to a deli to get a sandwich in his honor and just to think about my dad and to be sad. That was my intention for that day, to be sad. I ordered my sandwich. The waiter walked away. I'm sitting at Junior's Deli in LA waiting for my sandwich. A beam of energy or light from heaven came from above into my head like this. Bang, really hard, something really powerful. Bang, hard into my head. And then through my eyes and brain, projected 6 to 8 inches in front of my face. And I swear to my daughter, this is a true story. A 3D color hologram home movie of the 1970 UFO sighting I had with my father. And this is in 2017. 3 days after he died, it played for me, you guys. Color 3D hologram with sound. With sound. I'm watching it. Now, it's not, my mother said it was a memory. It's not a memory. I was in the movie. So in this movie is my father's car, my dad, me, and the UFO. From a few feet, the God is the cameraman, you know, like Cecil B. DeMille with a camera, was behind my father's car. So the whole entire scene was captured in this event. And I saw myself jumping up and down like I remember, Dad, look, it's a UFO. And my dad looked, you guys, and now here's the killer. My dad looked down at me. He winked at me. My father winked at me and said, and then he said, come on, kid, let's go home. Now the screen dissipates. This little video stops playing. My heart's beating fast and I'm shaking. I'm like, what the hell was that? What the hell was that? Then I had the voice, the famous Dan Harary voice. Get a pen, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen. You need a pen, you need a pen, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen. I asked the waiter for a pen. He put it in my right hand. On the table in front of me is a paper placemat. And my hand did automatic writing. I've never done it before or since. My hand wrote the following: write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. And then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C, and then my hand stopped moving. And I'm holding this paper now, I'm shaking. And I'm like, what is happening to me? What is happening to me? And I'm staring and staring and staring. And after a few minutes, everybody, I came up with my book, After They Came, ATC. This book was given to me from my Father from heaven. My Father from heaven. He sent me this book. He sent me that home video. And this book changed my life. Now, who was my father? That's the key to the whole story. My father was an electronics engineer and a physicist for the U.S. Army for 45 years. My father, after he died, I discovered and I have proof. My father helped to invent military drones for the Army. My father helped invent military drones for the Army. I asked my mom after he died, did Dad ever talk about UFOs? My mother said, in the early 50s, Paul, this is such a great story. In the early 50s, your father came home one day from work and he was pale and shaking and nervous. And my mother said, honey, what's wrong? And my father said to my mother, I saw something today. It's above top secret. I can never tell you or anyone as long as I live. And my father never did. He never told anyone what he saw that day. Now, if anyone knows the Jackie Gleason and Richard Nixon story, Paul, do you know that one?
No, I don't, but we're going to know now, aren't we? Just hit us with it.
Oh, no, it's a wonderful story. In the early 70s, Richard Nixon was the U.S. president. One of his best friends was the comedian Jackie Gleason from the Honeymooners TV show. They were playing golf one day in 1973, I believe this is. Nixon and Jackie playing golf. Nixon says to Jackie Gleason, hey, what are you doing tonight, Jackie? He goes, nothing. He goes, you want to see something really cool? Gleason goes, sure. Richard Nixon, as a man, not as the president, as a person, drives his own car to Jackie Gleason's house, picks him up in his car. No Secret Service, no police, just two men in a car. Nixon's the president of the United States at the time. They drive to an Air Force base in Florida. You can Google and see which one. I don't remember which one it is. They pull up to the front guard. The guard goes, can I help you? Nixon rolls down the window. It's the president of the United States. The guard goes, oh my God, Mr. President, what are you doing here? He goes, open the gate, Sonny. Okay, it's the president, right? Imagine you're the guard and there's the president of the United States. So they open the gate. They drive onto this base, military base. Richard Nixon takes Jackie Gleason into a hangar and shows Jackie Gleason dead alien bodies. They go home. Gleason's wife, and this is in multiple books, Gleason's wife said when he came home, he was very, very upset. He was crying and very nervous and very upset. She said he was never the same after that, and he was very troubled by what he saw that day. Well, that matches exactly the story that my mother told me about my father. So my theory is my dad either saw alien bodies or a UFO craft or a piece of UFO technology. It had to be something along those lines. And now here's the kicker to this story. Last year, Stephen Greer gave a 3-hour talk at the Washington Press Club. And he showed a slide, I have it freeze-framed on my TV, of 145 U.S. military bases that he has proof of through his whistleblower network of U.S. military bases that worked on reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology. Okay, so Stephen Greer is a pretty good source. He has hundreds of whistleblowers lined up. As soon as Congress passes the Schumer Rounds bill, if that ever happens, the whistleblowers can come forward in safety. So I freeze framed this thing, 145 U.S. military bases. Number 51 on Stephen Greer's chart is Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. My dad worked at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey from 1951 to 1996. Now, 1951 is only 4 years after the Roswell crash. Think about that. And then I researched Fort Monmouth. Fort Monmouth was the first U.S. military base in America to detect Sputnik. They were involved with Werner von Braun. They were involved with the Manhattan Project. All kinds of top secret things, technologies were invented at Fort Monmouth. So the UFO I saw with my dad in 1970, when I was jumping up and down like a lunatic, and my dad looked at it bored, and then he winked at me. My dad was saying, Danny, I can't tell you right now what that is. And then after he died, Paul, and I go to the deli, my dad sent me that home video and said, Danny, my whole life, I couldn't tell you what I knew, but I'm dead now. I have no more NDAs with the government. Remember that UFO that we saw? I knew what that was. I had a hand in that UFO, as God is my witness. So my dad was involved with UFO reverse engineering for the Army, and he gave me the book, and this book changed my life. It's how I met Bassett and created the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, became the publicist for Contact in the Desert. I have my own podcast called Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. Everything from this book because of a deli sandwich.
Fabulous. And Dan, we've nearly done, and I want to pull Les back in a moment, but tell us, anybody who wants to contact you, anybody who wants to buy your books, just give us a little bit, a minute on Dan.
Sure,
and
thank
then
you.
We'll go to some questions, please.
Thank you very much. So I really appreciate this. I always enjoy talking to you guys very much. Dan Harary, author. So my name, Dan Harary, author, AUTHOR.com. All of my books are there. My Flirting with Fame book about my Hollywood career. After They Came, the book I just described. My Paranormal Life. And 5, my little novella about a serial killer. Everything is danhararyauthor.com. Check it out. My bio is there. Pictures of me with very, very famous celebrities is there. It's a fun website. And you can contact me through there. All of my books are on Amazon, of course. So Flirting with Fame, After They Came, 5, a novella, and My Paranormal Life. They're all on Amazon. Right. Anyone's interested in ufology and wants to support the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance movement, we're going to have 200 members by the end of the year. It's HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. And my daughter created it. It's a very robust website. You can see all of our members are up there. If you want to become a member, you can write to me there. We are a 401c3 nonprofit corporation, and we are helping to nurture the next era of movies and TV shows based on real life experiences of people like everyone who's writing to Paul right now, and me, and all the other experiencers. This is a way for experiencers to connect with Hollywood. I thought of it. I'm the chairman, and I'm very, very proud of Hollywood Disclosure Alliance.
Thank you, Dan. Honestly, that was brilliant. Do you think we can fit just a couple of questions in before we close this down?
Whatever you want to do.
Yep.
Okay, question from Ian Linney. Question for Dan. You seem to have good experiences. Have you had any bad or negative experiences? Thanks, and a good guest.
Nothing I can think of offhand that bad experiences that were paranormal. No. I think I was very, very fortunate. The voices and the light bulbs to go off my head and things have tended to be positive things that have moved me forward in a certain direction. So I think I'm very blessed, quite frankly, other than falling off the sign, and maybe I died, right? Maybe I died, so who knows? But otherwise, Ian, I'm very fortunate. I think most of them have been very positive.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And just a couple of questions for you, Paul, in the very limited time that we've got.
Yeah.
Tom DeRose, I go to Ulrome, which is on the east coast of the UK, there in Yorkshire, in a caravan. Have you ever seen anything around there, Paul?
Got reports from there, Tom. And I'll tell you what's interesting at Ulrome, and you might be able to, you might already know, but green lights beneath the sea at Ulrome, more than one person spanning quite a long time, and green orbs in the sky around Ulrome. Don't ask me why. And it's not far from Les, where Les lives this, and it's not far from where, kind of in between. Yeah, and yeah. So great question, Tom. Just to put it out there about the green. Yeah.
Mark McClinchy, the guy in a motorised wheelchair, and this is relating to a recent short that you put out, for those who don't know, you can find it on the Truth Proof channel, in Danes Dyke, heard and then saw a tall figure. Was it a wolfman?
He believes it was something like that, Mark, and I say every time, it's not an insurance policy. I don't believe these things are real, as in flesh and blood residing in this area, but I believe that there's a reality to them. He saw it, quite sincere. And once again, and I don't know if Dan's come across this, and we're not going to have time to answer it all, it's repeat areas. There's lots of reports of a similar thing around this area. So, yeah, he believed it was something like that. Dogman, wolfman. I think dogman's just a new term for an ancient thing that's been reported for thousands of years.
That might be the cryptid I'm calling a gargoyle. I mean, honestly, whatever I saw, it was 6 or 7 feet tall, and it was not human, and it was like a hybrid animal of some kind. It was very peculiar looking. I remember it vividly. I would love to, and again, when I get hypnotized, I'll email you, let you know if I find out what that was. But I really would like to know.
Probably afterwards, because I know we've got short for time, but it's just come into my mind. Your hypnotist, regression lady, I'd like to have her on show. Ask her for us.
Oh, sure. I'll do an email. Oh, she's lovely. Yvonne Smith, Yvonne. Yvonne Smith. She lives in Pasadena, California.
Fabulous.
Very nice.
Let's hit us with another one. We've got a few minutes.
Yeah, we'll do a couple more.
No more questions tonight.
Fred Flintstone.
Karen Beeman,
don't bother us with another one.
And I've got to thank Diane Farrell for the super chat and super stickers tonight. Thank you very much for your support.
Well, to be honest, Dan, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. You know what? There were more things that I wanted to speak to you about. I mean, have you ever? And we're not going to just imagine devoting a minute to this. Have you ever considered spiritualism or seances or anything like that?
I've seen a number of psychics, shamans, hypnotists, aura, like healers and things. I've been told I had past lives. Nothing I can ascribe to where I'm at today. But I mean, like one very famous psychic told me I was a comedy writer for radio in the 1940s. Well, let me tell you why that's interesting. I came to LA in 1980 to be a comedy writer for TV. And decades later, this very famous psychic said, you used to write for the Fred Allen comedy radio show in the 40s. I go, really? Okay. So, and I was a stand-up comedian for years too. So I think some psychics have an ability to find a kernel in your past life or present and give you some, and like the psychic in Alaska, told me my dead friend Paul was my friend Paul, the tall guy who loved hot dogs, was my spirit guide. So if psychics aren't out for, and I've also been ripped off by psychics who want $10,000 to clear your auras, don't do that, because that's a scam.
Excellent. Well, I'm good to go with this, Dan. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
2 hours have flown. I've not had to do anything. So, well, I haven't. You've just controlled it all and ran with it.
There's so many. I didn't even tell you about my grandfather, the poltergeist.
I know one of my questions, but
it's a really
we
good.
didn't get to it.
It's a good story.
Just for doing moderating. I know Alison came and did some moderating for us as well.
Yeah,
and Les.
And it just remains to ask you, Dan, would you come on again and give us some more of the accounts and stories.
There's a
haven't you?
lot. Yeah, there's a lot more we could talk about. Sure. I would love to. You guys are just my friends, and I love being on the show. And your audience is wonderful. Super proactive. I love that. It's great.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right,
that
brothers.
note,
Take care,
then.
you guys. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
On that
Bye-bye.
note,
Dan Harary, author.com. Dan Harary, author.com. Buy
yeah,
my book.
and there's-
Help a starving Beverly Hills publicist out.
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah.
starving. No, all
Yeah,
good.
and if
I'm
anybody
starving.
reads
Thanks, you
the
guys.
description for tonight's show, then there is a lot of links in there, Dan, what I've put in there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
if anybody wants to get in touch or buy any merchandise, books or anything, then that's where they need to go. Okay, on that note, then, we are done for today. We are back on Sunday, Paul, for the
We
big
are,
draw.
and all being well, we're speaking to a lady called Heidi who's going to share some of her experiences. Fingers crossed. If not, we'll have things to talk about. And yeah, a great show planned Sunday, and an equally great show that we've just ended tonight. Thanks to
Thank
Dan
you, guys.
Harary.
I'll hook you guys up. Les, I'll hook you up with Yvonne Smith. Yeah, she'd be a good guest. Yeah.
Brilliant.
All right. Have a
All
good
right, then.
weekend. Take care, you
On
guys.
that note, good night,
Bye.
folks. We'll see you next time. Bye.